Cairen will be the first one to speak up, I would assume. Servants, I'm not one to be commanded like one of those slaves. But I assume we don't have much choice, do we?
He looks at you, looks to Theodora, who stands behind you. She has a wicked smile. Says,
Yes,
we are all servants of Asmodeus. None are next to him, the Prince of Hell. But as he said, through me, through him, you can achieve all you are destined to achieve as Princess of Talengard.
Cairen nods. Yes. Our goals do seem to be aligned. Vengeance and revenge are strong words, and I think cooperation would be mutually beneficial for us. I do swear loyalty if you want me to. If you use your resourcefulness to help me in my path, in my achieving what I need to achieve.
He nods, looks to you others. Excellent. Let this pact be signed in blood. It is tradition. Now pulls out a quill and what seems to be a silver ritual knife. He also pulls out 2 copies of a contract, written on some sort of leather, and written with dark red ink. He pushes one copy over the table to you. I will give you a moment to read. If one of you wishes to read aloud, that is perfectly fine. I'm sorry for the muddled writing. Doesn't seem like MapTool accepts features.
I wrote in chat what Asmodeus accidentally muttered to himself.
Zacharias will certainly glance at this contract.
Could I have one of you read it aloud?
Sure. Zacharias will read for the group. Clearly, he sort of assumes that there is at least one, or perhaps more in the group, that is not literate, and as such he will help out. Behold, on this day, today's date, in the 8th age of this world, a perpetual compact is made between the Cardinal Adrastus Thorn, hereafter the Master, and those who would be bound to him as his acolytes, hereafter the Bound. Both the Master and the Bound shall hold fast and true to this compact through all trial and tribulation. By blood and soul the Bound commit to the compact and swear that it shall never be undone. The Bound shall know and understand the 4 loyalties. The first loyalty is to their patron god, mighty Asmodeus, first among the fallen, prince of the 9 hells, our father below. They shall do all that can be done to further his worship and his glory. The second loyalty is to the Master, he who is called the Cardinal Adrastus Thorn, High Priest of Asmodeus in Talengard. They shall do the Master no harm and obey his every commandment as long as those commandments do not clash with the first loyalty. The third loyalty is to their companions, the other Bound who serve alongside them. The Bound shall deal with each other fairly and honorably, as long as doing so does not clash with the first or second loyalties. All treasure, wealth, and reward garnered in their exploits will be equally shared with all of the Bound who aided in its acquisition. The fourth loyalty is to themselves, for Asmodeus is the Lord of Ambition, and all who serves him should strive to become great and powerful in his service, as long as doing so does not clash with the first, second, or third loyalties. By their weakness ye shall know the unworthy. The bound swear that they cleave to and uphold the four loyalties even in the face of death and damnation. The master swears that as long as the four loyalties are upheld, he shall reward the bound as they deserve for their deeds. The bound swear that they cleave. Is it really cleave?
Yeah, cleave is a weird word in English. It can mean both like adhere to and cut apart.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I never knew that. Thank you.
Yeah.
The bound swear that they cleave to and uphold the four loyalties even in the face of death and damnation. The master swears that as long as the four loyalties are upheld, he shall reward the bound as they deserve for their deeds. Thus is it written, and thus it shall be. We, being of sound mind and free will, do so swear, and let they who violates this compact know all the wrath of hell unending. And he sort of points down at the line at the bottom. Here is where you sign. And he sort of looks over at Cairen.
Cairen is too busy reading the contract himself to notice his obvious insult.
Adrastus Thorn swiftly signs his copy of the contract. Leaning back, looking at all of you, sort of with the silver quill in front of you.
Zacharias puts his hands on his back, looking at the rest of the party, see how they will react.
Azureus is kind of like standing stiff. It's almost like what the words that was said. Something inside of him has clicked with those words. You're not sure what.
Markas will gladly and eagerly be the first one to sign the contract, because he's already sworn himself to Asmodeus.
Cairen seems somewhat amused by this turn of events, and he's mumbling to himself slightly, and you can make out the words, "It appears that fate has decreed to have me bound." What an ironic turn of events. And then he will sign the contract.
Kash looks a little... It may be a little fear of the word of being bound. Of being caged. And looks to Raith.
Raith has a very cold expression on his face as he is studying the cardinal.
Cardinal sort of looks at all of you. Nods to those who sign. He seems a little impatient.
Cardinal, I do not mean to insult you, you being so gracious as freeing us and hosting us, but I am not a faithful man against any of the gods. It irks me to have to serve any higher power at all. I serve myself and my own ideals. I will say, however, that your promise of fire and ruin to Talengard has spoken to something in me. It seems we have at least in this part, a mutual goal.
Kash looks at Adrastus. Will you promise revenge?
I promise you revenge.
Will you promise the fall of the Church of Mithra?
Yes.
Kash looks at him suspiciously. How much do you know of us?
Kash, I know much and more.
Can I kill Tryon?
Perhaps.
I need
Not
a yes.
yet, however.
Not yet, but can I have him at my bidding? Torture him how
I care little. That is a matter far below this level.
Kash nods and signs. As long as you promise that I can torture this man as much as I want.
Just flex his wrist. Trivialities.
Zacharias looks again very cold down at the paper. Yes, you promise ruin and you promise death. Yes.
All I ask in return is obedience. You shall be justly rewarded. I am bound to the contract just as you.
Zacharias seems to, like the rest of the party, can basically see like his eyes flash up and down the contract, minutely reading like every word and weighing it. And you can see sort of the gears almost moving inside his head as he considers the many possibilities. And he says, yes, as I said, I am loath to serve any god, but if it brings closer to my ultimate goals, I will sign this. And he takes up the quill, and he signs as the last person of the group.
Well, I haven't signed yet either, so...
Oh, okay. That's the second to last person of the group.
Drestus looks to Azureus. Dora sort of walks a little closer to him.
Finishing muttering in Infernal to Markas, generally about how the flame seems to have guided him to this point, and he cannot deny this fate. Knowing anything about the gods, really, Azureus just signs.
Drestus nods and smiles, clearly pleased with this outcome. Well done. Your first command, prepare yourselves. Stay within the manor. You're still hunted by Talranian soldiers. In 3 days, we begin your training.
And what training is that, more precisely? Master. Zacharias adds sort of at the end, and with a hint of venom and sarcasm.
He smiles and looks at you. Many lessons. No leave.
Kash nods and says, yes, master.
Cairen frowns, nods.
Seemingly opens the door.
Cairen frowns, nods, and leaves without saying anything.
Master, I shall serve you.
Indeed. The next 3 days seems you are indeed tended to by the slaves. You're given time to relax, enjoy the manor has to offer, and if any of you spent a lot of time in the sort of lounge area.
Certainly, Zacharias will certainly spend much of his time there, sort of reading the books, etc.
Second day, afternoon. If you are in the lounge area, then please stay. If not, then move down.
I want to note, at some point I would have talked to Markas, noticed he was still wounded, and healed up his wounds.
Hey!
Yeah, I'll be in the library.
Yeah,
Sure.
as will Markas.
Cass will look at her slave and says, come slave, let's go. And she withdraws to her chamber. She wants to be alone.
Alright. You can sort of position yourself around this area here. Down here
Sheep, you staying?
Yes.
Oops.
It appears Zacharias is running away from us.
Nope, nope.
Come back!
Ah! Like 400 pounds of metal and muscle like, crash on me. Like, ah!
400? What do you take me for?
The giant hulking metal beast that you are.
I weigh like 180 and then my armor weighs 30.
Kilos, right?
Well, that's almost 400.
No, pounds.
No, it's actually tons he's talking about, but yeah.
Alright. As you are sitting in the lounge, two people looking very much like each other enter. They have a quiet conversation. They have black hair and clad in what seems to be sort of white and light blue garments. Sort of see all of you here, looking at you.
Zacharias looks up from his book and looks back.
Zerus is noticing Zacharias is done looking at something. I'll have a look.
And so will Cairen.
And Markas.
It seems that sort of stand here looking. Things are a little awkward for just a second. So it seems that there are others here. Indeed, quite interesting, isn't it? Interesting group, I must say. One sort of whispers something to the other one. He smirks.
Cairen will speak up. And who might you two be?
Their names. I'm Talus Rackburn, and I'm Titus Rackburn. Venturous from the far north. Come here to aid your problems. Seems they must be dealt with by someone from the outside. It is good to see that some amateurs have gathered here. Smiling. Steps aside as another person enters. This very big man with a very, very big sword that he seems to constantly hold up in a sort of threatening manner.
Zacharias looks quite perplexed at the man with the sword.
So he doesn't really say much, he just seems to stare. Look at you.
So, did you actually want anything with us, or do you just want to talk about us? Because if you want to talk about us, I'm sure there's a very nice corridor or barn or something you can inhabit. We have other things to do than entertain your flightful fancies.
Smiles and says, I'm sure you do. But no, we're here to enjoy ourselves and relax before the training begins.
Something sort of dawns on Zacharias. He says, yes, now I think I understand.
Cairen seems somewhat amused. So you two clowns and your, what I assume is your bodyguard over there, as he points to the man with the huge sword, are joining us in our training.
Orm sort of shakes his head and says, no, if you will, we don't need bodyguards. And we're here with a different person. As a fourth person steps in the door. She's a very fair and very pale lady with dark hair. She appears to be dressed in very sort of nice white and very sort of warm robes. And on her Her arm, she has a white bird. She walks in slowly, walking around. As she comes closer, you see that the bird is a raven. She says, "Let us keep this civil now, shall we?" She smiles. "I'm sure we are all here for the same reason, to bring ruin to this land. I must apologize for my companions. They are not as civil as I." So smiles, a cold smile. "And who may you all be?"
I am Zacharias.
I am-
Guest here for the time being.
Cairen frowns. Well, I don't think you have told us your name yet, have you?
And said, "I'm Elise Sedaria, Lady of the Far North. It is my pleasure."
Cairen nods and says, I'm Cairen, and says nothing more.
She nods, sort of eyeing him, his muscles. She looks to the others. Clearly expecting introductions.
Markas will just say, "I am Markas Thornblade," and that's all he'll say.
I am Azureus. Azureus Ravenheart.
She smiles.
He says that, but in his eyes there's a little bit of like sorrow almost. Look, that quickly snaps away into fire.
She nods, looks at Zacharias, at the very back.
Zacharias looks coldly back at her. He did say his name. He was the first one to do.
Oh, right. "And what may your party then be called, as a whole?"
Our party. What? Cairen seems completely confused.
Yes. "I overheard you speaking of yourselves as a group."
Well, I suppose, but he looks at the rest of his group. Do we need a name? Do we have a name?
I don't think we have one.
Zacharias shrugs. What use is a name at this point? We are not some traveling group of minstrels or entertainers. We are here to bring ash and ruin upon Telengard. Not
Those
some-
people need a name for their destruction.
"And how exactly do you propose to do that?"
I don't see how you would be privy to our plans, lady.
She smiles. "A pity. I'm sure they would be very interesting."
Cairen would be getting annoyed at this point, but he's too busy trying to think of a good name.
It's like, Deathbringers. No, I am.
Smiles as she turns around. "We, the White Ravens, will surely see you around. Good luck with your training." Okay. And following. The two others sort of giving you eyes.
A quick question before they leave. Can we discern anything of their like skills, professions? Like how are they armed? Like the big guy has a sword, obviously.
Yes.
like the outward appearance of Lady Zacharias seemed to suggest that she is some sort of mage, sorceress, or witch. I could, like, Zacharias
Seemingly.
could Zacharias make a check for something to, like, knowledge
Try to
arcana or
look at
something?
her. She doesn't really seem to have much besides the robe. She's currently wearing. She has no book. She does, however, have the white raven.
Right.
Talus appears to have a bow. Also appears to have a couple of weapons, mainly shorter and lighter weapons. While Titus appears to have not much, a quarterstaff at the moment, it seems.
Okay.
As the group leaves.
Cairen seems to have delayed trying to think of a good name for later that addresses the group. Well, curious people. I wonder if they will be a problem in the future.
No doubt, they are our competition. Do you not realize? Asmodeus is the god of ambition and strife. These surely mean to pit this other group against us.
Cairen scratches his chin and smiles. Do you think that training would be a fight to the death, maybe?
Zacharias shrugs. I am not privy to the the good cardinal's inner thoughts. But what little I know of the church, and he sort of waves a hand towards Markas, seems to indicate that battle to the death would not be out of the question. But this is more the purview of our good Sir Knight here than me.
No, a battle to the death is not out of the question.
Cairen seems quite happy.
Zacharias nods. Then we should take extra care to observe these people. They seem to have a brute for strength. The woman is, my guess, some sort of shaman or other invocation of natural forces, perhaps a druid or a witch. One wearing a bow, I'm guessing some sort of archer, and the other one a quarterstaff. Hard to read. It could be a mage. Did he have like robes or anything, Manaki, or how was he dressed?
He had sort of loose clothing.
He could be a some sort of spellcaster too, although my guess would, from his less intelligent manner, to describe him perhaps as a martial trainee, perhaps a monk or some of the kind. A martial artist, I believe. Given that this is our competition, we should take careful consideration in our tactics and approach to these people.
Cairen shrugs. They don't seem like a threat to me. 2 clowns, a witch, and some sort of brute. I don't think if it came to a fight, which I really hope it will, we won't have much of a problem.
Never underestimate your enemy.
Cairen frowns and then shrugs.
I agree with Azureus. We should not underestimate them.
Until we see them fight, they could be just as dangerous as the entire guards combined.
If they speak true and they are actually travelled here from the north, well, that is quite the way to actually travel. We would know from that they are most likely experienced, so much so that they can survive such rigors of travel. Then they are not...
While likely being hunted for that.
Probably. They are most likely not unskilled.
Still so confident, Cairen?
Cairen shrugs.
If they're here in the first place, we should not take them lightly.
If you say so.
Zacharias looks at Markas, being the most martially proficient of us here. What would be your assessment of their fighting capabilities?
Sorry, what?
What would be Marcus's assessment of the others' fighting capabilities, the other party?
He would come up with much the same assessment as the others, with the whole martial artist, the witch, the big sword guy. I mean, from first glance, there's not really that much to glean. So,
Regardless, throughout the next day, you do sort of see them around, sort of a little more this day. They don't really approach you much, as they sort of sit there, talk amongst themselves mostly. We do sort of smile at you, and you know, maybe at some point, some of you would like to talk to them. If not, then let's just move on.
Well, Azureus is just going to be intently just looking around the library for anything to do with Asmodeus or that kind of thing. Mostly, except he does feel like finding where Grumblejack is and maybe paying him a short visit.
Very fine, Grumblejack. He seems to be enjoying himself very much, with nice accommodations, even for someone of his size.
Will anyone be joining me on this trip?
Sure, I will join you. You don't have to be alone.
We can have a nice trip over here.
Yeah.
Are you going to bring your servant?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring my servant. Of course.